Are these double feature reviews going to be more of a thing for me? Yes, no, maybe, so. I will say this though. Am I ever going to watch an animated film for families with a post apocalyptic horror film back to back again? Hell no! What is up, everybody? Random Random Man here, bringing you not one, but two movie reviews back to back in one take in front of my Blu-ray collection, or some of it, yet again, as I'm trying to go ahead and get my thoughts on these two films out there very quickly because it is hot. I'll throw up on the screen here right now. There is a huge heat wave that hit my area this weekend, and it's not gonna cool off until through Tuesday. And my AC in front of me is currently turned off, and it's loud when it's on, and you'll barely hear me speak if it is on. So if you see me turning red, no pun intended with this first movie being a Pixar film, or sweating bullets or anything like that, you'll know that I'm doing it and pushing through just for the sake of the video. And I saw these two movies earlier today to beat the heat in the morning. And again, I'm bringing my thoughts now to you all. By the way, here is the time skip for the second review of the video if you just want to get right to that one. But first, I'm going to be giving my thoughts on Elio. So this is the latest Pixar film, and going into it, I honestly did not have that much interest in it, though it is an original IP from Pixar, and that is of course what helped build them to be the legendary animation studio that they are today. That stretch from 1995 to 2010, so up to 15 years ago, with the first Toy Story all the way up to Toy Story 3 is something that is so iconic that hit after hit after hit. And then they have done a lot of sequels to their original IPs recently. Just last year, Inside Out 2, that became their most successful film ever, and I like that one a lot. But with Elio, the marketing for the film wasn't hitting me that much, or at least from what I recalled from it. I don't remember much of the trailers for this movie, but apparently this movie was reworked since the first footage was put out for the public or something like that. And then I just mentioned Turning Red earlier as a no pun intended thing, but the director of that film, Domi Shi, who also previously worked with Pixar on Bao, which won her the Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film, she came in to help, I guess, redo the movie or just help finish it or something like that. I don't know. She was brought in to work on it before we got the final cut that we are now seeing playing in theaters right now. And it did look cute in one sense, but I was just interested to see like how it would hit in terms of it being a story and all that kind of stuff like Pixar usually does. But starting out with the cast and their vocal performances, we have Jonas Kibrib as the titular 11-year-old character. Now, he is someone who is very much, I don't want to say weird because everyone is weird in some sense, but he has trouble fitting in. You know, he has low self-esteem. He doesn't have any friends. And then also tragedy struck, because this is a Disney movie, at the beginning, and it's why he's feeling down. And he loves space and aliens specifically, and he wants to get abducted by aliens, and then inadvertently gets abducted and is mistaken for being the leader of Earth and helps some sort of intergalactic crisis that is happening. I think this guy did a really good job here, voicing a lot of the anxiety and just like struggles that he's facing with on the inside. Any kid could relate to that, and even as an adult like myself, just this is something that is universal for everyone to really get into in terms of the messaging and just how this character comes off as. I think a lot of kids are really going to take a liking to Elio. And then playing his guardian or his aunt, his tia Olga, we have recently awarded Academy Award winner Zoe Saldana. And I really liked her here as well, having a lot of warmth with how she plays this character. She is an Air Force major, so that's also connecting to the interest of space that her nephew has. And it's just trying to be a good parent to her nephew after tragedy struck, like I said. And there's other characters in here that we see here and there. Once Elio does get abducted, so to speak, and goes off into space, we have a lot of colorful characters here. And another big player is Brad Garrett. He's like this villain-type character who's this leader of his own group, who's trying to take over this group that Elio is abducted by. And that creates the main conflict, or at least like the main pull of the adventure for the film, on top of Elio just being different and wanting to fit in, and that's why he wants to get abducted by aliens and all this other stuff. And then he ends up making a friend in space as well too, that's all connected to how the plot eventually phases out. And I think that the way it goes, I mean, it's a kind of story that we've seen before, but I think that the unique setting and just a lot of flourishes, I should say, a lot of flourishes that the movie puts in terms of the animation and even the coloring, I think helps it stand out. And again, I don't know how much of this film was reworked or how it was supposed to be originally. I'm just going off of what I saw in the final cut, so it's kind of good maybe that I don't recall the original marketing or the trailers or footage for this film, but I thought that it was sweet. It's sweet sci-fi, I think, that anyone can relate to in terms of them trying to find their place in this world and how it eventually goes along here. I got a couple chuckles here and there, of course, because of this being meant for families and kids. Ultimately, it running along at just under an hour and 40 minutes, over an hour and a half, if I remember correctly. Just how it moves. Again, the animation, Pixar is always top tier when it comes to doing that, but the designs of the different alien characters, my favorite was this like little liquid supercomputer, which was really cute sounding. And then there's also the design of the alien that Elio befriends mainly in the film. He's like a mixture of like a slug and a spider, a space slug or spider or something, I don't know, but it's really unique, as I said, as is like this whole thing that this movie's trying to put up and being this kind of film that anyone can just latch onto and being different, all of that coming together. I don't think it's one of necessarily Pixar's better films that they've done ever or anything like that, but I do give it points because of the originality and just how the messaging really will speak to many, many people, and how just being different or finding your place in this world is very, very important, no matter how old you are. And then it's especially important for kids in any sense because of just what they're gonna shape up to be or who they're gonna be and all that, and just finding connections. It's just great in terms of like what the movie is doing and how it's expressing all of that. So for all that, I really enjoyed Elio. I think that it is a film that anyone can come in to see and just have a really good time with and just feel so sweet by the end, as Pixar usually does. And I think that, yeah, I think that this is another winner from them. I definitely recommend it. With that being said, my final verdict for Elio is 4 out of 5 stars. And finally, here is my review for 28 Years Later. Now, this film I was definitely looking forward to seeing, as earlier this week, leading up to this film's release, I went back and watched the previous 2 entries in this series. 28 Days Later, that is the film that was responsible for reigniting the zombie craze, at least in the modern day, almost a quarter of a century ago. So like there wouldn't be any Walking Dead or The Last of Us without 28 Days Later. And you know, that movie is also pretty known for being shot on such a low budget. It was shot with mini DV camcorders, I believe. That's why it has such a rough look to it digitally. And yeah, Cillian Murphy, one of his early roles, now an Oscar winner for Oppenheimer. And Danny Boyle as the director here, also, you know, earlier on in his career. The writer here is Alex Garland, who of course is recently just coming off of the 1-2 punch of having written and directed Civil War from last year and co-written and co-directed Warfare from earlier this year. You know, I love both of those movies and such. And the sequel, 28 Weeks Later, neither of them worked on that movie or are credited with directing and writing, though apparently Danny Boyle did direct a part or 2 in 28 Weeks Later. This film is a lot more thriller and action based, while the first film was just more, it was getting to like, you know, how we're feeling the effect of like how the infected and the outbreak are just running around and all that stuff. But I like 28 Weeks Later. I don't think it's as strong as 28 Days Later, but I thought it was surely entertaining. But then now we have 28 Years Later, and we see the return of Danny Boyle and Alex Garland behind the camera as writer, director and writer respectively. And that got me excited to see what would be done here. That trailer that has now gotten a lot of people interested in anticipating this movie, that is what really made me want to see it as well. The cast, all of that together. And without further ado, let me just get into the performances of this film. So starting with the cast and their performances, I'm going to begin by talking about Alfie Williams. He plays Spike. He plays the main lead, I would say, of this film because we follow him for a lot of it. So he is living, of course, in the UK, specifically in the Scottish Highlands, isolated from the rest of the world. In the first two films, we mainly followed, I think, mainland England. Yeah, for sure, London. But here, this is a different location, different part of that region. And he's living in this isolated community that has been trying to fend off the infected with the rage virus and all this stuff, but also having their own close-knit community too. And he's learning how to like go out and just hunt and kill all these infected. And this is his first time doing so with his dad. And this is apparently his feature film debut. And wow, this is one of the best first performances that I've seen in a movie in quite a while, because you feel that he is anxious. He wants to get stuff done as well too, but you know, he's just a kid. I believe he's 12. So like there's a lot that is put onto the situation, and coming up in this world that he never knew in the before times before this virus broke out and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that just made for an outstanding performance here. His dad is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, and I think this is one of his better performances too. You can tell he's a loving dad as well, but he's trying to push his son in a good way. And there's something that creates a rift between the both of them eventually in the film too, which yeah, more drama, all this other kind of stuff. Jodie Comer plays the mom to Spike, and I thought she gave a quietly powerful performance. I didn't expect to see as much of her in this movie as at least I was expecting, because of the way the movie cuts back and forth between Spike and his dad being out and then cutting back to the community. But Jodie Comer is quite a skilled actress, and she is playing somebody who's not all well. Like she's, I wouldn't say mentally in and out, but like she's so confused and then just feeling sick, just like not feeling normal, even though she doesn't have the virus herself. So with that coming together, I think that does create a lot of stuff to really bounce off of what she has to do, especially since she has more prominence in the movie later on. And then finally, I'll mention Ralph Fiennes as this, at first, seemingly eccentric doctor who doesn't pop up mainly until the second half of the film. And, you know, he's just coming off of another Oscar nomination for Conclave, playing one of the potential candidates to be the Pope. And now he's playing this guy who's like a lot more like, ooh, not feral, but like in with the wild and like doing his own thing or whatever, as the movie is revealing to show what he does. And, you know, class act, as I say, for any actor of his stature or his status. So like, you know, he is fantastic as he usually is. And yeah, the performances here I all thought were pretty top tier. Then we get into the writing by Alex Garland. With the first film that he did, we really got to see like how the virus just spread, and then the after effects, at least affecting this one main person, Jim, Cillian Murphy's character, with that iconic early moment where the streets of London are just deserted. And of course, now after we just went through our own pandemic, that is just hitting close to home and just feeling a lot more like, feeling a lot more eerie in retrospect, especially since I last watched that earlier this week in preparation for this movie. 28 weeks later, focused on the involvement of the military, trying to regulate everything as well and such too. And yeah, not everything goes as well as it seems. But then now, again, with Garland coming back to write 28 years later, we see that this is a lot more, I think a lot more of like a personal or tender kind of effect that what it's doing, even amidst a bunch of the chaos that is happening. Because initially, we do get a cold open like we do in the first two films of the infected running rampant among people. And then we are introduced to the main characters like Spike and his dad. They go out from their community, and their only way to get to and from where they're going is on this mini causeway that with the tide going too high, they can't cross it, but if it's low enough, they're able to go. And, you know, setting it up like that, and there's a lot of action in the first half to really get us in and back with this world and such. The second half really does a tonal shift that is much more on the dramatic and emotional side, which I didn't necessarily expect, but I welcome, because I thought it was effective for what it was doing, because we get some different character moments, and I don't want to give anything away. Yeah, I'm trying to not give any spoilers here, but honestly, that left me pretty stunned as to what it was doing, on top of like how it was juxtaposing all of the graphic nature the movie was doing. I mean, this is a super R-rated movie. Like, oh my God, it's not for the faint of heart. Not just for all the gnarly zombie kills that we're getting and stuff too. Like, no, there's a lot of nudity in this movie too. So yeah, not for those who are squeamish or like, you know, are sensitive to that kind of stuff, because now the infected that are running around are pretty much all naked compared to the previous two movies. So there you go. Make of that what you will. Proceed with caution and stuff. But then you couple that with Danny Boyle's direction, and I think this is his best directed movie, in years, because of the focus that we get when the action is coming into play, the character moments, and just how it moves along all together. The movie runs at just under 2 hours, and honestly, I didn't feel a drag or skip a beat at all, even when it does shift into the second half and going in that direction. And then the way it is all helmed, like the action that is put into play here. Not only do Danny Boyle and Alex Garland return behind the camera, but also the cinematographer, Anthony Dodd Mantle. I apologize if I misremembered that name, but I'll put a correction here if I indeed did. But he comes back as a cinematographer. So the first two movies, especially the first one, were known for like the very chaotic camera style and like how it's cut together and edited and all that kind of stuff. But with this movie, a lot of it was made to a point to where a lot of it was shot on iPhones, actually. So on iPhone 15 Pro Max models. And to give you guys a bit of perspective, I'm shooting this from the front-facing camera of my iPhone 15. So the highest-end model of this phone was used to partially film 28 years later. And I can tell in some moments, like with how certain things were like framed or shot or rigged up, that multiple phones were used, different lenses, especially with the kills. Like when arrows are going through zombies, there's like a slight like stop motion type effect where it turns like 90 degrees a certain direction or whatever, or like even up close moments are like a lot more chaotic shots that are like going around together. I think like not using that as a gimmick, but like I think helping like, just get across the frenetic nature of like the whole situation of being in a post-apocalyptic world, and just overall how the movie is shot too, even with the professional cameras that we see. A lot of wide shots that we see are just like, wow, this is one of the most stunning films that I have seen all year, even with how dreary it looks, but like how just we see a lot of the hills and just even shots that like stagnate, like they just linger on so much. The music, I gotta give a shout out here as well too. The one track that was used in both previous films is back here, but I'm not gonna give away when, but the music itself, like that, it feels very abrasive. The rest of the score is like, oh my God, you really get feeling the tension with this movie, and seeing it all with the grotesque nature that we go in front of it and going the all different unpredictable directions. I mean, just wow, honestly, I didn't expect to be quite taken by this movie as I was, and you technically don't have to have seen the previous two movies to really get into what 28 Years Later is doing. There are nods and callbacks and like visual cues and all that stuff, and we're actually getting a sequel to this film really soon, January of next year, this coming January. This film and the next film were shot back to back, and it was done by Nia DaCosta, so let's see how that goes with it, depending on how this movie and the next movie are in terms of success. We're apparently getting a third film as well too, but honestly, just from looking at 28 Years Later on its own, I loved it. I'm not one for horror mainly, as many people know, and zombie movies, I mean, I like my fair share of zombie movies here and there and all that stuff, and like zombie content or just anything like that. I love The Last of Us, for example, the game and the show, both games and the show, and with how 28 Years Later, I think, is as effectively emotional as it is grotesque, just like, grippingly grotesque. I think this is the best of the three films yet. I'm not just talking out of recency bias or anything like that here. I just think that with the character moments and just how it went in that second half, honestly, that hit me well. I know it's not hitting that many people well because, while most critics like this movie, I think audiences are sharply divided because the trailer made it seem like it was going to be more of an intense experience than it is. I mean, there's action throughout, mostly in the first half, especially with my favorite moment involving that aforementioned causeway. You'll know it when you see it, like, just wow, one of my favorite scenes of the year. But I think that this film still gets across in the ways that, I found that these kinds of movies are able to do, even with a tried and true concept of like zombie films and like something that we've seen before, all that stuff. But in continuing this world being expanded in the franchise, I think that this is something that I think on its own just is one of the best movies I've seen so far this year, one of my favorite movies of 2025 thus far. And for those who are able to stomach it and are able to just get through and have horror be their thing or zombies be their thing in any sense, I highly recommend it. With that being said, my final verdict for 28 Years Later is 4.5 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Elio and 28 Years Later, social media links in the description, subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.